Most people think the financial breakthrough happens at $1 million or 10 million, something big, dramatic, and far away. But in real life, there's a much smaller number that quietly decides whether your finances stay fragile or finally become stable. That number doesn't get much attention. It isn't celebrated. In some circles, it's even laughed at. But when you look at how money actually affects daily life, one threshold keeps showing up: $20,000. I'm Alex. Today, we're going to look at why this specific amount, not a million, not even 100,000, is one of the hardest and most important lines most people ever cross. We'll break it down step by step. Why life below this number feels heavier than it should. What changes mentally once you pass it. And why investing doesn't really work before you get there. And think about it in physical terms. When a rocket launches, most of its fuel is burned in the first few minutes. Not to go fast, but just to escape gravity. That early resistance is intense. For most people, the stretch between $0 and $20,000 works the same way. You're not moving forward. You're just trying not to slide backward. And until you escape that pull, no clever investment strategy can save you. That's where the story begins. The gravity well of poverty. When your savings sit below $20,000, life doesn't feel neutral. It feels hostile. Every small issue becomes a chain reaction. A $600 car repair isn't just inconvenient. It threatens rent, groceries, and your job if you can't commute. That's the gravity well. You're not moving forward. You're burning energy just to stay upright. Look at the math of daily life. Low balances trigger bank maintenance fees. Late rent brings penalties. Credit cards quietly charge 20% or more. You buy the cheapest shoes because that's what you can afford, then replace them every year, paying more over time. Poverty taxes you for being poor, and the cost isn't just money. Here's the part most people miss. Time gets more expensive too. You spend hours comparison shopping to save a few dollars. Now you delay medical care because of copays, then pay thousands later. The system extracts interest, fees, and stress all at once. That's why the climb feels endless. Notice the contrast. Above a certain cushion, problems stay small. Below it, they metastasize. The same event, an unexpected bill, has completely different outcomes depending on your buffer. That's not luck. It's structure. And here's the quiet tell. When your savings are thin, you don't plan. You react. You choose speed over quality, relief over strategy. The gravity well keeps pulling until you build enough mass to escape it. Why investing doesn't work below $20,000. When savings are thin, investing feels like the shortcut. It isn't. With a small base, even great returns change nothing. Earn a strong 10% on $1,000 and you make $100 in a year. That doesn't lower rent, doesn't fix a car, doesn't buy time. It disappears into gas, groceries, or one utility bill. The return exists on paper, not in life. This is why people with low balances chase extremes. Options, crypto bets, next big thing stocks. A normal return feels insulting, so they swing for miracles. But here's the quiet math. When the base is near zero, the risk of a total loss matters more than the upside. One bad trade resets everything back to zero, and the climb starts over. There's also a timing problem. Markets reward patience, but small balances demand liquidity. Yeah, when an emergency hits, and it always does, investments get sold at the worst moment, not because the plan was bad, but because there was no buffer. Forced selling turns long-term strategies into short-term mistakes. Notice the contrast again. Investing works when returns can absorb real expenses. Before that point, returns are noise, and risk is lethal. Until the base is built, the smartest move isn't chasing growth, it's protecting accumulation. That's the part almost everyone skips, and it's why most investors never get past the starting line. The psychological shift after crossing $20,000. The moment your savings cross $20,000, nothing changes on the outside, and almost everything changes inside. Same job, same commute, same clothes. But your brain stops sounding the alarm. The constant edge softens, and that shift quietly rewires how you behave. Here's the real difference. You gain the ability to say no, not dramatically, calmly. If a boss pushes unpaid overtime, the fear response doesn't hijack your thinking. If a role turns unethical or unstable, you don't freeze. You evaluate. That cushion buys you months of breathing room. And breathing room changes negotiations. When you can walk away, conversations rebalance. Compare two coworkers with identical pay. One is living paycheck to paycheck. The other has a buffer. When pressure shows up, one reacts from survival, and the other responds from choice. Same skills, same title, completely different leverage. That's refusal power, and it's invisible on a resume. There's another shift people don't expect. Confidence rises without ego. You stop performing urgency, you listen better. You push back when it matters and stay quiet when it doesn't. Decisions slow down and improve. Money here isn't about spending, it's armor. It protects your judgment, your dignity, and your time. And once that protection is on, you start noticing opportunities that were always there, but impossible to take when every choice felt like a cliff edge. Scarcity, IQ, and decision making. When money is tight, your mind is never fully off duty. Even during normal days, part of your attention is stuck running numbers. How much is left after rent? Whether the card will clear? What happens if the car light turns on? That constant background calculation quietly drains mental energy. Studies on scarcity show this pressure can reduce effective cognitive performance by around 13 to 14 IQ points. That's roughly the same impact as staying up all night. Suddenly, everyday choices feel heavier. You miss emails, you snap in conversations, you delay decisions that actually matter. And then people look at the outcome and assume poor judgment, without seeing the pressure behind it. This explains patterns that seem irrational on the surface: high-interest short-term loans, and buying cheap items repeatedly instead of one durable purchase, spending hours to save a few dollars while ignoring larger structural costs. When your brain is overloaded, it prioritizes immediate relief over long-term efficiency. Now, flip the situation. Add a real buffer. The mental noise drops. You're not rehearsing disaster scenarios while brushing your teeth. You don't panic over a medical bill or a delayed reimbursement. Your thinking stretches forward, months instead of days. Here's the quiet shift most people don't expect. You don't feel smarter, but your decisions start compounding. You pause more. You react less. And that alone changes the trajectory, long before any investment ever does. $20,000 as the starting point of compounding. Compounding doesn't start when you open a brokerage account. It starts when the numbers get large enough to matter in real life. That's the part most people misunderstand. Below $20,000, returns exist, but they're swallowed by normal expenses before you even notice them. Run a simple comparison. A strong 10% return on $1,000 gives you $100 for the year. That won't change anything. It doesn't cover insurance, doesn't offset rent, doesn't buy time. It feels invisible. Now scale the base. The same return on $20,000 produces $2,000. That's different. That can cover a month of rent, a deductible, or a car payment. For the first time, your money solves a real problem without your labor attached. This is the moment the relationship shifts. You're no longer fighting alone. Capital starts sharing the load, quietly, predictably. Every year, it earns back a small piece of your time. And once that happens, behavior changes. You're less tempted to interrupt the process. You stop checking balances daily. You let time do the work. There's a simple rule behind this. Compounding needs critical mass. Like a snowball, it won't roll until the core is packed tight. That $20,000 is the core. Protect it, and gravity flips. Before, it held you down. Now it starts pulling in your favor. The great filter. Why most people fall back. Reaching $20,000 feels like winning. That's exactly why it's dangerous. The moment the pressure lifts, a new voice shows up. It says you've earned a reward. It says you're finally allowed to relax, and right on cue, temptation lines up perfectly with your balance. The classic example is transportation. Your old car needs another repair. You walk past a dealership and see a clean, new SUV. The down payment? Almost exactly what you've saved. On paper, it feels reasonable. In reality, it's the trap. The second you sign, that cash core is gone, replaced by monthly payments, higher insurance, and higher fuel costs. The safety net disappears overnight. Here's the part people don't see. That purchase doesn't just reset your savings, it reverses the psychological shift. The freedom to say no vanishes. Quitting a bad job feels risky again. Market downturns become scary again. One decision reopens the gravity well. There's also social pressure. When you stop spending, people notice. They joke, they question, they frame restraint as deprivation. Not because you're wrong, but because discipline makes others uncomfortable. This is the filter. Many reach it, few pass it. The difference isn't income or intelligence. It's the ability to sit with money without needing it to perform. Blueprint. Structuring the $20,000. Once the $20,000 is intact, the mistake is treating it like a single pile of money. It isn't. It has two jobs, and mixing them up is how people get forced into bad decisions. The first job is protection. The second is growth. Start with protection. Set aside roughly 5 to 10,000 in cash or cash-like reserves. This money is boring on purpose. It's there for the things that always show up at the wrong time. Job gaps, medical bills, car repairs. When markets drop or life surprises you, this buffer keeps you from selling investments at the worst possible moment. Most investing failures don't come from bad markets. They come from needing cash at the wrong time. Now the second job, growth. The remaining portion goes to long-term ownership, not clever bets. Broad, low-cost market exposure beats guessing. You're not trying to pick winners. You're buying the entire economic engine and letting it run. No constant trading, no checking prices every morning. Time does the heavy lifting. Here's the contrast worth noticing. People who skip the buffer panic during volatility. People who separate roles stay calm and stay invested. Calm compounds. Panic doesn't. This structure doesn't feel exciting. That's the point. The excitement comes later. When life throws a punch and nothing breaks, and when your money keeps working quietly while you focus on everything else. Using asymmetric risk to accelerate growth. Once you have a real buffer, the rules around risk change. When you're broke, any loss hurts too much. But with $20,000 protected, you're finally allowed to take small risks with limited downside and meaningful upside. That's asymmetric risk, and it's how progress speeds up. The most overlooked example isn't in the market, it's in yourself. Spend $1,000 to learn a skill that improves income, technical training, certification, or a practical business skill. Worst case, you lose the fee and some time. Best case, your monthly pay rises by a few $100s. Over a few years, that return dwarfs most investments, and it doesn't fluctuate with markets. This buffer also buys something else, experimentation time. You can try a side project without panic. You can test a second income stream. And if it fails, you don't spiral. You adjust. That flexibility is rare and valuable. Notice the contrast. Without savings, people cling to safe but stagnant work. With a cushion, they can place small bets that compound into new earning curves. One path locks income in place, the other quietly expands it. Here's the tease most people miss. The fastest way from $20,000 to $100,000 isn't market genius. It's pairing modest compounding with smarter income growth, while your downside stays capped. What to avoid? Between $20,000 and $100,000. This stretch is where progress accelerates, and where one mistake can erase years. The first trap is leverage. Once you have savings, lenders suddenly show up. Margin accounts, personal loans, easy credit. The pitch sounds smart. Use money to make more money. But leverage collapses your margin for error. A normal market drop or income disruption can force liquidation at the worst time. Time, not intelligence, is what builds wealth. And leverage destroys time. The second trap is complexity. Options, futures, high-frequency strategies, advanced products with impressive charts. They promise speed. What they really deliver is fragility. These tools are designed for professionals with teams and risk controls. For everyone else, they turn small mistakes into permanent losses. Now, the third trap surprises people, buying a home too early. With $20,000, a down payment stretches thin. Monthly payments lock cash flow. Repairs, taxes, insurance stack up. That new obligation quietly removes the freedom you just earned. Suddenly, quitting a bad job feels impossible again. Risk-taking freezes. Here's the pattern worth noticing. Every trap trades flexibility for appearance. Leverage looks sophisticated, complexity looks smart, ownership looks like success. But each one narrows options. Between $20,000 and $100,000, the real skill isn't doing more. It's avoiding moves that pull you back into the gravity well you just escaped. Redefining wealth and quality of life. By the time you've protected that $20,000, something quiet has already changed. You may not look richer. No new car, no upgraded wardrobe, but your days feel different. The tension eases, sleep improves, arguments about money happen less often, or not at all. That's not imagination, it's biology. Chronic financial stress keeps cortisol elevated. Over time, that stress shows up as poor sleep, irritability, weakened immunity, and burnout. When you remove the constant fear of the next bill, cortisol drops. And when that happens, life quality rises without spending a dollar. This is the invisible dividend of savings. Here's the contrast most people miss. Two people can earn the same income and live in the same place. One feels constantly behind, the other feels steady. Like how the difference isn't taste or discipline, it's having a margin. That margin buys patience with your kids, with your partner, with yourself. This is where the definition of wealth flips. Wealth stops being about display and starts being about control. Control over your time, control over your reactions, control over what you say yes to and what you don't. The tease at the end is simple. Once money stops shouting in your head, you can finally hear your own thinking. And from there, better outcomes follow. Not because you chased them, but because you weren't running anymore. The line that changes trajectories. At this point, the number itself almost stops mattering. What matters is what crossing it proves. Saving $20,000 isn't a financial trick. It's evidence. Evidence that you can delay gratification, that you can sit with discomfort, that you can protect something valuable without needing it to perform or impress. Most people never fail because of income. They fail because they break the contract with their future self. The moment they finally build a cushion, they trade it for relief, status, or reassurance. Not because they're reckless, but because no one taught them that restraint is a skill, not a sacrifice. Here's the quiet contrast. One path uses money to signal success. The other uses money to buy time and options. From the outside, the first looks better for a while. Internally, and the second feels better almost immediately. This is where trajectories diverge. The habits that got you to $20,000 are the same habits that protect $100,000, then $500,000. Not hustle, not genius. Consistency under boredom. The tease most people don't expect is this. Once you've proven you can protect the first threshold, the rest becomes easier. Not because life gets simpler, but because you stop needing money to validate you. And when that need disappears, progress accelerates quietly, year after year. Key takeaways. The first real shift in money doesn't come from a clever investment or a higher return. It comes from building enough margin that life stops forcing your hand. Below a certain threshold, decisions are reactive, rushed, and fragile. Above it, choices slow down, not because you became disciplined overnight, but because pressure finally eased. What this number really buys is optionality, the ability to wait, the ability to say no, the ability to let time work instead of fighting it. Compounding only matters after that foundation is stable, and risk only becomes useful once downside is contained. The deeper pattern here is simple. Progress follows structure, not intensity. People who protect flexibility keep moving forward. People who trade flexibility for appearances loop back. If this way of thinking feels familiar or uncomfortable, that's usually a sign you're seeing your own patterns more clearly. Carry that lens into the next decisions you make. Not to rush them, but to notice what they quietly cost or quietly preserve.